speaking of good people, everybody in this club has helped the district run and been part of being district governor. A few members of the club participated on the district conference committee. Rob was our treasurer, and you heard him mention last night that we made a presentation to the finance committee. I'll brag just a little bit, but those two amounts that you heard are the most amounts of money that have ever gone by a pretty large margin to the annual fund at the Rotary Foundation and Polio Plus. So I'm going to follow my own first rule on take pictures, and I added take pictures and post them. Because social media is really how we get the word out about Rotary. And as I watch other club Facebook pages and their websites, you see just incredibly compelling presentations at clubs and clubs out doing service projects, and we want to make sure that the world knows what we're doing. So take pictures. Sam Wari is the person who would have been the president of Rotary International this year. And my class of district governors in zones 33 and 34, we go through all of our training together, and we had wanted to do a project, a governor's project, a global grant. And it's where each governor will hopefully get a little bit of money from their district, and we all contribute it together. There's 29 governors in our two zones, and do a project. And so we were wondering what to do. And we had a lot of people who had done a whole lot more global grants than I had. I had mostly just helped raise money to give to global grants. But it occurred to me that since Sam was from Uganda, that it would be nice to do a grant in Uganda. And I guess, in Rotary, if you have the idea, your punishment is you get to do it. And so I was asked to lead it, but when it first started, it wasn't some big grand idea. It was to just do a small project to honor our international president. And so we wanted to reach out to Sam to do the project, and so I did. I didn't know him, so I just started contacting people in Evanston and trying to reach him. And as you can imagine, a person who's about to be the president of Rotary International, they have a lot of gatekeepers, and they're really good at it. And I'm pretty good at getting around gatekeepers, and I couldn't do it, and I was not able to connect with Sam. And so I was worried that I couldn't do, that this was not going to happen, and all of these governors were going to be disappointed. And so I decided I would talk to someone who I knew had done a lot of global grants and knew how to make good connections. And so I called Walter Hughes, and most of the people in our club know Walter. And Walter is really well known for doing water projects in Ghana, which is West Africa. Uganda is East Africa. As a matter of fact, in Ghana, there's a saying that wherever Walter goes, water flows. And so I like that too. And so I was talking to Walter about it and telling him the difficulty that I was having. And he said, well, George, I was just speaking at a district conference last week where Sam was the international representative. And I can connect you with him because I'm helping his wife, Nora, build a church. And so we got off the phone. He sent an email to Sam that he CC'd me on, and literally 5 minutes later, Sam emailed back and said, we would love to, and then I had Sam's personal email address. So, I have found that that's a really good thing to have. And so Sam was delighted that we wanted to do that project, and he was from an area in Uganda called Merkit. Actually, he's from Kidera, but there are two villages beside each other in the county of Tororo, which is up in northeast Uganda, right along the Kenyan border. And so he asked us to do this project there. It was basically just going to be a well at a school. And so we started raising money for it. In Atlanta, I met with Sam to just talk for about 5 minutes, just to talk about the project, and he was really excited about the project. And then about 2 weeks later, he had surgery, and he was under general anesthesia, and his blood pressure dropped and he died. Just a total shock. It had never happened in Rotary that the president-elect had died while waiting to become president. They had to invent what they do to replace them. And so they interviewed only people who had originally interviewed for being the international president. One of those people was Barry Ratson. And fortunately for us, and I think the Rotary world, they selected Barry. You had to have some really unique skills to step in and do this job after a charismatic figure like Sam Awori was supposed to be doing it. And so Barry came in determined to honor everything that Sam had started, and basically he continued all of those efforts, because there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, and then the things that weren't done, Barry made his own. And so we have had a Rotary year this year where really Sam Awori has sort of just been a presence for the entire year. Well, when Sam died, the project, at first, it looked like the project was going to die with him, because the people of Uganda were so depressed. They wouldn't return emails. They just were stunned. This was only the second ever president that was going to be from Africa, and the first ever from Uganda. And so that fall, I was meeting with our class of district governors, and I was telling them it looks like the project's going to unwind. And one of my classmates down in Florida, a woman named Sandra Hempstead, said, "We can't let that project die. Those people still need that. We should make it a memorial to Sam." And so she had the idea to make it a memorial to Sam, and we did. And I started talking to a couple of past district governors in Uganda who knew Sam well and knew a lot of people, and word got out that it was going to be a memorial to Sam, and then it just took off. It just had a life of its own. And at district conference, you probably heard me say that we have 60 districts, many clubs that are participating in this project, and it's the most number of districts that have ever collaborated on a single global grant in Rotary. It's really astonishing. Wherever Walter goes, water flows. There's a wine drinking fellowship of Rotarians, believe it or not. And I have heard Walter say that he has not turned water into wine, but he has turned wine into water, because that fellowship supports him. Well, one of the past district governors in Uganda, boy, I'm taking up a lot of time. One of the past district governors in Uganda is on the Rotary Action Group for Water, Sanitation, and Health. And so they are a major contributor to this project. However, we also got the beer drinking fellowship to contribute money through that Rotary Action Group. And so Walter says he's turned wine into water, but now I can say I've turned beer into water. So that's a lot of fun. So Sam Awori, he is the inspiration behind this project. So in Meerkat, this is a health clinic that they have, and they just are doing all the general stuff that you might see happening at an urgent care, with the exception that they also have a maternity ward. There's about 50 babies born there every month. And in the dry season, which happens twice a year, if you don't bring, or your family doesn't bring with you 100 liters of water, they will not admit you. And so there have been many babies born right here. Because they just absolutely will not let you in to have a child if you don't bring water during the dry season. And so one of the places you can imagine we're bringing water is right here to this health clinic. And the water tower that we're erecting, and I'll show you pictures later of the foundation of it, is right back here. And so inside the compound of the health clinic is where the water tower itself is going up. So there's a huge amount of work that goes into this, and getting the water is actually a lot easier than you would think. The hard part is changing how people conduct their daily lives. And so you have to do an awful lot of training, and the way you do that training is with children when they're young, because it's really hard. You know, if an adult has been going around pooping behind every building all of their life, it's going to be really difficult to get them to stop doing that. But if you educate children, that's where you'll have success. And so on the second trip, I was fortunate enough to be able to have Tara and Rachel. You can see this is Tara, and that's back of Rachel's head. And they're there working together baseline data on how much school children are missing because of waterborne illness. Because we want to know what our impact is. The world is going to totally change for them. This is how they get water. Now there's 3 of these hand pump wells that do not work for about 2 months a year. There's 2 dry seasons, and during those dry seasons, that will drop down to the point where you can only get around 50 liters of water out of it per day. That's how slow the water's seeping in. Those are also shallow boreholes, and so there's a lot of the microbes and things in there that cause disease. But that's the best that they can get, and so they drink it. This is what they're going to. It will be 1 tank, not 2, and it'll store 100,000 liters of water, and it has an enormous solar pump that will fill that up in about 8 hours. And so they're right on the equator. They have 12 hours of daylight every day. That way, if there's some interruption or something, they have a real cushion of being able to keep those tanks filled. We're building a lot of overcapacity so that the water can be extended out into a lot of other places that are a little bit more remote within the village. But initially, there'll be water at the health clinic, the government center, all 6 schools in the area, and downtown in a market area, where right now they have no water at all. So the work is underway. They do work the old-fashioned way in Uganda, and everything is hand dug. So these are the trenches. It's about 1 kilometer from the well site to the tower site, and so that is all hand dug. And look at how good they are. I remember my mom telling me when I was young, George, I don't care if you're a ditch digger as long as you're a good ditch digger. And I thought, this guy, he must have had the same mom I had. So that is a straight ditch. And I've dug a few ditches. That is some good work. Latrine of beauty. And you wouldn't think of the latrine as a beautiful place, but when you see what they are using now, it really is. And I'm sorry the contrast of this photo is not showing up. What made me think of doing that line is this is a stunning picture. Maybe I'll post that on Facebook so that you guys can get a look at it. But the clouds look like they're this high off the ground behind the latrine. And then here again, they are digging. And in Mirror Kit, the soil goes down to about right here. And then the last 2 feet is rock. And they are in there with chisels, and they're all barefooted. You watch them swinging those mattocks and driving those chisels, and I thought, oh man, they're going to lose a toe in there. And sometimes there's 5 or 6 people in there all working together. That they dig those latrines. And so every school gets a block of these latrines that includes 3 latrines for the young men, 4 latrines for the young women, and 1 latrine for disabled people. And it's really interesting in an area where most of them, they don't even have latrines. When you're building new ones, they're really conscientious, especially at the schools, of making sure that any disabled children have access. And I thought that was really cool. And it was something that hadn't even occurred to me. I thought we were going to build these latrines, and they said, well, what about the disability? And these are villagers in a place pretty far off the map, and I'm learning from them. But we can do better than latrines. So this project, the global grant, includes latrines. Well, Walter, he is such a mentor and inspiration to me. There's a technology called microflush toilets. We tried to convince them to use the microflush toilets, but they're skeptical. And the biggest reason they're skeptical is about every 2 to 5 years you have to clean them out. Now, you're using worms to compost it, so when you take it out, it's not feces, it's highly marketable compost. But we couldn't convince them to do it. And so on the last trip that I went over, I talked to Walter Hughes, and he and I, it's called off-grant funding, but basically he and I paid to build 2 microflush toilets. And the reason we did it is we wanted to train people to build microflush toilets. And our goal was to get 12 people to come and be trained to build these microflush toilets. And we had 40. And you can see them all here working. It was amazing to watch them. Now, most of these people are tradespeople already. They're plumbers, bricklayers, carpenters, and so they're coming to try to learn a skill that they can sell. And so here's Walter, me, and this is our primary contact. He's from the Rotary Club of Kampala. His name is Jimmy Sarugo, and he is a retired journalist, is what he told me. But really, he owned the biggest newspaper in Kampala for a long time and sold it. And so he's just an amazing person. So after we built these, the bishop in the local archdiocese, it's a very heavily Catholic area, came to the celebration that I'll show you in a minute, and he declared that all future toilets that are built on church property will be microflush, and they've already built 3.
Oh, wow.
So, did I tell you anybody that I'm an inventor? In the public one, this is being built right behind the maternity ward because we wanted a really nice bathroom for pregnant mothers. But we also wanted to build one at home. So this is a 2-stance, and you can see where you stand in case you don't know how that works. But we wanted to build one at home. And so on their water committee, there's a young woman named Juliet, and she's just been incredibly involved in helping basically on the ground in the village. And so we were going to build one for the head of the water committee, but this guy, he's really smart. He said, no, that will look bad for me politically. People think I'm getting it because I'm leading the water committee. And so we asked who on your committee could we build this for? And so Juliet, and she is absolutely well-deserving. And so we built this. Now I was saying, it is not much wider than this lectern. However, this is her house. And it's right beside of the house. And you never build a latrine right beside of the house because of the smell. But the advantage of microflush is they do not smell. And so they built it right by their house. Now, I asked her, do you want to squat or do you want to sit? And so she is educated. She's a school teacher, and she knows what a toilet is, and so she wanted to sit. And so if you look at this, there's the hole, and so we just extended the hole, and this is my invention. And I'm not kidding. So they already build stools in microflush toilets, but they actually lay up bricks or something else, and it takes a long time to do it. It's a lot more labor. And so I was just thinking about it, and I thought, well, you can just build, I wish I had a picture of the forms, but essentially you just build 2 forms, one inside of the other, and they're reusable. And you build them, and then you pour all the concrete into it. That thing is so heavy. I mashed my fingers getting it moved in there. And then you move it in, and then you put the small slab on top. And you've never seen a woman so happy about the bathroom. It was, you know, we talk about bathroom, right? It's like pooping, feces, and peeing, and going to the bathroom. And, you know, it's just a normal function of life. And so we have to get over that. I just like this photo. And so we gathered all that baseline data, and now they're coming back to train the teachers. So all these teachers are being trained in water, sanitation, and health, especially feminine hygiene, because a huge component of this is providing menstrual napkins or sanitary napkins for women, young women, in schools. And we found a partner, and you can see their logo here. They're called Clean the World, and they're just a fantastic organization that was started down in Orlando. And there was some tech guy, and I really like that because I'm an old tech guy. And he used to travel all the time like I did. He was a road warrior. And he just was thinking one day, what happens to all this soap? And at the end of the day, right, we all get in, we open up our wrapper of soap, we use it one time, and then we leave. You know they're not rewrapping that for the next person. And so he started talking to these major hotel chains and found out it's all just thrown away. And not only that, if you're a 3-star hotel or above, even if the shampoo is never opened, they throw it away. Throw it away. And so they now have agreements with Marriott and Hilton and all the major hotel chains, and they donate all of the used soap and everything else, and they have a factory in Orlando where they re-extrude it, and now they're opening up these little factories all over the world where they provide all these cleaning supplies. And so we found that one of my governors, who is a governor in Orlando, knew about the organization, and so they're doing all the sanitation and health training and providing free all the supplies for about 3 years. And part of this training, though, will be teaching young women who are graduating or about to graduate from high school how to sew reusable sanitary napkins. So not only will they continue to have that supply in the school, these young women will have a very good income from providing those. So they believe in having celebrations to celebrate notable events. And so here are all of our graduates. We had 40 come, we graduated 34. So 40 came every day for a week. And so imagine when you're living right on the edge of the economy. I mean, we talk about living paycheck to paycheck. They're living day to day, and they took 4 days, and came from all over, from miles away. And every day they would say, we can't come tomorrow unless you can help pay for fuel. And I said, no, I'm feeding you lunch every day, and we're giving you the training free, and every day they would figure out a way to get back. And so 34 graduates, including me and Walter Hughes. And so now I can build one of those micro-flush toilets, and I'm going to build more. This is Nora Warren. And she is cutting a cake to celebrate it. This is the water chairman. His name is Christopher. This is Mebra. She is a member of the Rotary Club of Kampala North. She is a retired educator, and she is our liaison for doing all the sanitation and health training. So she's the one who's really coordinating Clean the World while we're there. And then, of course, here is my goat. And that is a live turkey. Now, a lot of people said, George, what did you do with the goat? I did try to get a kid's seat on the plane. Wah, wah, wah. But I gave it to a Herb, you like that? How we doing? Well, actually, we're not bad all the time. So I gave it to a family in the next village over that could really use it, and they were so glad. I mean, it's amazing what just getting a goat, how much impact that has for a family.
What'd you do with the turkey?
The turkey actually was not mine. It was given to another guy named Jeffrey Ibear, who is with Rotary Club of Kampala. That's one of our host coordinators. But I think he said, George, can you hold this a second? That's not something that happens very often in your life where someone says, you hold this turkey. But I knew from holding chickens, if you hold them by their feet upside down, they just kind of hang there. You know, they'll flop all over the place if you try to hold them upright, but if they're upside down, they're pretty chill. So at this celebration, every school did some kind of presentation, and they, one school basically did a pantomime of pooping in the open versus pooping in a latrine and washing your hands. Now and it was hysterically funny, and all of the people were really laughing. But after that is when I made a speech, and I had kind of a speech that I was going to give, but instead I just said, the children know what to do. All of the adults, will you know what to do? Will you do it? And that seemed to have some impact, but listen to this poem that the class wrote. That's Juliet. Water is life. So, anytime you're traveling with Walter Hughes, it is an adventure. So we're going to Uganda to work on a project. And Walter says, George, you think we could pop over to Kenya? There's a school over there that we're thinking about doing a project. So we dedicated one day, an 18-hour day. We got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, left Uganda, drove all the way deep down into Kenya, and this is Maasai land, and it is absolutely stunning. It looks an awful lot like Napa, if you've ever been out in the Napa area of California. And this is me with all of the beautiful Maasai women. Here is their water and school committee. The leader of this project is Rose, and she's a school teacher there. And she has a dream of having a school for right now their school only goes through 8th grade. And she wants them to be able to have additional schools. And in Kenya, all the other tribes really look down on the Maasai tribe. Maasai are cattle herders. They don't have really any tradespeople. So anything that they have that's built, they have to hire to be done. They don't get very good funding from the government. And they're basically just kind of settled in this one area and kept in poverty. So, you may see I have this robe on. I should have brought the robe, but they gave me this traditional robe that the herders wear, and a stick that's like a cane that they use to whack the cows. And they gave me a Maasai name of Lamaya, which means blessed one. And I have lived a life that is unfathomable if you look at where my life started. And Lynette and I often talk about just how blessed we are. And I was really kind of stunned. They didn't know me, but that was the name that they gave me. And it really tells a story of how I feel. Now, I'm a foodie. And so we went to Rose's home, and she has a very nice home. It's a hut, but it's very nice for there. And they have a separate kitchen. So she and her family prepared all the food, and it's potato, banana, and this is almost like sauerkraut, and chicken over rice. You know, very simple food, but oh, it's so good. It might have been the 10-hour drive to get there. So they have it's a motorcycle is what we would call it. They're all 125 cc's and they're called bodas. And I'm like, what is a boda? How come they don't just call it a motorcycle? And so the port in Kenya, because Uganda is landlocked, the port in Kenya, Mombasa, and there's a road that comes all the way from Mombasa to Kampala, and it's the Mombasa-Kampala Road. And trucks come back up and forth all the time, but people, believe it or not, they have no wall, and people are constantly sneaking back and forth across the border. And it's so blatant that a lot of them take these little trail bikes, and that's how it started. And boda is border to border. And that's what the name is. And so they use these things. So in a lot of countries, you'll see scooters, like in Asia and India, you see scooters everywhere. And they just use them for everything. And I've got a whole bunch of pictures. I'm going to actually make like a collage, but here's just a couple. You know, so this is on the way to or from a market with all of their produce. There's tomatoes and all kinds of other things in there. And then I don't know how many, you know, what is it, 7 years of bad luck if you break a mirror? I don't know. Does that get multiplied if you break the mirror on a boda? And they're going down the road at like 40 miles an hour on this thing. Can you imagine how hard it is to hold that mirror in the wind? And one of the gusts hits you sideways, you know? And so, but I love motorcycles. I have a Harley and I'm really into them. And so this is my dream boda. I mean, this thing is beautiful. This guy had this thing all polished up. There's a place right down here where they wash the bodas. And so I saw that. I'm like, stop, I got to get a picture of this thing. And I mean, it is beautiful. If I could get a boda, that's my boda right there. So when I was traveling around as district governor, one of the things I talked a lot about was our Rotary journey. And, you know, a lot can happen to you when some guy comes up to you like Dave Hardy and says, hey, George, will you help us build a playground? And you don't know it at the time, but you are at the top of a precipice or the top of a waterfall. And depending on what all you say yes to, this is what your Rotary journey might look like. So this is the Nile River. A lot of people don't think of the Nile as looking like this, but it's some of the highest ranked whitewater in the world. And so when Tara and Rachel and I were over there, we took a little bit of time to have some fun. So here's my Rotary journey, right? This is an analogy or an allegory. Look at this. I knew I shouldn't have had that last plate of bananas. Now watch right here. Watch right here. Okay, so this is where I am. I'm the district governor. This is me. This is me all year long, the district governor. This is Tim Carter. He has no idea what he's in for. You know, he's down here. He is over his head. This poor guy was beat to death. What you don't see is he's just banging. He's gone. And here he is again. And now watch this guy. Here's Nancy. Okay. Poor Tim. Looking back, it is one of the coolest things I've ever done. Sitting there in that raft with Tara and Rachel, I'm thinking, and seeing this guy going, I thought, what am I going to do? I'm thinking, how do I save them? That's all you're thinking about. And, you know, I told you I have that guardian angel. So about 80% of the rafts that go over that flip. We didn't flip. We didn't flip the whole day. The only time we wound up out of the raft is when we wanted to be. We jumped out. And so about an hour after that, we're laying there floating on our backs, staring up at a beautiful sky with puffy clouds. And I'm sitting there realizing that this kid who grew up in a poor area in West Virginia is floating down the Nile River, staring up at the sky. And just, you know, we all have those moments in life that are really poignant for us personally. And that definitely was that. And so I don't know how we were saved, but all I can say is Rolly be to God.
Chad, you are Old Testament.
You want that picture, Chad? Will that come in handy for a sermon somewhere? You can never give more to Rotary than Rotary will give to you. It has been the pleasure of my life to be a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Warren County. I have gotten to do and experience things that are the most enriching things that we can do as a human being. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. And that change has taken place in me, and I know it has taken place in you. And thank you for letting me associate with you and be a member of the Rotary Club of Warren County. And I'm so thankful to call you all friends.